Hello and welcome to Default Assault, where we take on everything by default. How's it going, Mr. Kyle?
I'm here to actually, shrink down every detail and rise to the occasion to deliver a badass show.
Well, what is this? The 20th Marvel film, third this year, following $2 billion blockbusters, Black Panther and Avengers Infinity War, taking place practically directly before Avengers Infinity War. Tonight we'll be talking about the sequel to the Avengers Age of Ultron follow-up, Ant-Man, starring Paul Rudd, Michael Douglas, and Evangeline Lilly. Kyle, I know we both look forward to Marvel releases. What were your thoughts leading up to Ant-Man and the Wasp?
I was smart enough to know that it would not be Infinity War, for one. Ant-Man, to me, has been one of the middle-of-the-road installments as far as single hero introduction movies go. It was always among the lower, but I always used Ant-Man being dubbed as, air quotes, a lower movie within the MCU to be proof of the strength of the chain that is the MCU titles, right? Because what's the saying? A chain is only as good as its weakest link. If Ant-Man is your weakest link, you're doing pretty bleeping good. That's all I'm saying.
Do you believe that Ant-Man is the weakest of the Marvel films, or are you just using it as a good mid-range baseline?
No, it's definitely a good baseline, exactly. Okay. And it's not the weakest of all the Marvel films. Remember, the wording I used very carefully. Hero introduction films, right? So anything with a 2 or involving an actual Avengers film doesn't really count in that instance, right? In the Marvel universe, worse than another Marvel movie is not necessarily a slight. Now, if I said it was worse than a DCU movie in the DC cinematic, is that DCCU? Now I'm confused. Anyway,
DCEU.
Whatever. The point is, if I say it's
sounds
worse,
like a disease.
Yeah, exactly. If I say it's worse than Batman versus Superman, somebody need to be pissed.
I think I know what the disease affects. Mustaches. That's what it affects.
It's a dermatological disease. Exactly. There you go.
But, it surprised me. I didn't think it's a great film, but it was a good version. It was entertaining enough for what it was. And it's one of the few Marvel films I really believe got better as it went along. Its ending was kick-ass. Everything involving Thomas the Tank Engine was incredible. A sentence that previous to that point I never thought I'd ever say. But it's out there and it exists, and I've said it.
Listen, fool, you're only saying that because you don't have kids. Thomas the Tank Engine is the jam for children. You need to back up off that there, high and mighty. Moving on.
So going into Ant-Man and the Wasp, once again, after the oh boy, the 10-year wait of Infinity War, this was a strategically placed, I believe, as a breath of fresh air. Dust ash free breath of fresh air following the the events of Infinity War. Spoiler alert for those 2 people out there who haven't seen it. Snap to it.
I don't want to say anything else about the accuracy of your statement because that in itself is a bit of a spoiler, but I'll leave that alone.
I don't know. I can say this from having seen it with mere hours ago that I don't think it's as good. No, it's definitely not as good as the original. I think it definitely lacks the focus of the original. This one does go off in many different directions. But it was overall it was entertaining. I definitely got many laughs out of it. This is very much more of a probably even more so than Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 specifically, much more so of a comedy. I really felt that the action came second to the comedic set pieces, more or less.
Yeah, so, and I'll respond to, you calling it a comedy. All you need to do is just look at the entirety of the scene, a relatively short scene granted, and kind of like my favorite sequence in the movie, frankly, as to this movie being a comedy. Like, it's serious enough. They're trying to recover this. They're trying to recover whatever it is they're trying to recover, as to not give spoilers at this time. And then when they get back, Hank Pym, aka Michael Douglas, is just ripping off one-liners, and it's awesome, and I'm loving every minute of it. And I want to cut in real quick on something else too, Demos. You talk about that the other movie had focus. My response would be is it's not so much that it didn't have as much focus as the first one. I think the spectrum was broad in it in this particular movie, right? Before it more kind of focused on Scott becoming Ant-Man, and the Pyms were just kind of a light spice sprinkled upon Scott to really account for how he got the suit and became Ant-Man, right? In this movie, we saw a lot more Hank Pym in and of himself. Michael Douglas even suiting up in some form or fashion to do something, air quotes, in the movie as well. And everybody's got all these different missions are going on, and there was one aspect of the movie with Scott trying to start up his own business. They did that just to get Lewis in there, and just so you can get one of those story time with Lewis segments where he's like, well, then he was like this. And it was like, damn, dude, he's like this. It's like, damn, homie, he's like this, right? Which, again, I always thought was stupid, but I don't have the right to critique it because at the end of the story in question, I always found myself enjoying it. It's that thing I'm like, oh, this is so dumb. And it slapped me in the face with how good it is.
But that's one of the things that this film could easily have overdone. They use it once in this film to good effect. It is a little bit longer than any of the previous iterations of this joke, but I think it's well placed enough. I think that if they did like even one more, it would have been you would have gotten sick of that pretty quickly.
We're going to stray on this one. If they're going to continue to do Ant-Man centric movies, Lewis has to do one per Ant-Man movie, period. That's a requirement now.
It's like the Q scene in a Bond film. You get one per movie.
Absolutely.
I'm glad that you did point out the fact that Michael Douglas had a very large role in this film. I mean, the film could have easily been called, and it would have been a mouthful, Ant-Man, the Wasp, and Pym Man. Because
you could have gone the sitcom route and make it two ants and a wasp.
We talked about missed opportunity very often on the show. There we go. There's one. Because the film is very much about this trio of characters, and each of them, unlike the first one where Pym was pretty much out of action during the final third of the film, he in many ways he is the character that drives the narrative of this film, and in some ways, and you can argue about whether or not this is a fault of the film or not, but it feels like Ant-Man himself, Scott Lang, is kind of the comic relief of his own movie, not as much of a driving force as he was before.
That was the truth of the first one, though. He was the comic relief of his own movie then. Lewis was there basically to remind us that he was the main character at times, I think.
I think it was more so here.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
Maybe they dialed back his competence a little bit.
Maybe.
I like. I'll tell you this much: whoever made the decision to let Evangeline Lilly have longer hair was a great. That's like the one thing I didn't. I know this is such a stupid thing to harp on, but her haircut in that original movie just did not do justice to her features. I thought that she looked fantastic in this film. I liked her as the Wasp,
as the one who's serious all the time. She balances out Lang's silliness and Hank's bitter, quippy, one-liners, right? She's the driving force of the film. She's the one that keeps it flying, perhaps.
I did feel like the main villain, Ghost, they give her an effective enough backstory. More of a tragic, without giving away too much, more of a tragic backstory than we have seen of many Marvel villains since, let's just say, we'll use Spider-Man Homecoming as a demarcation point, where suddenly villains got more interesting backstories, whether it be Michael Keaton's turn as the Vulture or Michael B. Jordan as Killmonger. This villain does follow that path of having a very effective backstory. I just don't feel that she was as effective as she could have been. I think she gets lost in the myriad of stories. This film should really be called Raiders of the Lost Lab, for as many times as the laboratory that they're after gets traded. The Ark of the Covenant had more stability in its travel plans.
Hey, a great point by you. And actually, I would even offer that the search for Pym, or Pym Drop, would be a better name for the movie in question. I don't feel like she was really an antagonist per se. I think she was just another factor in the story. Or you can even claim that the story had many antagonists, and really the true conflict was around defying physics or achieving physics that the Pyms had not yet to that point.
I think the closest to a true out-and-out villain the film has is Walton Goggins.
Yes.
And I hesitate to even call him that. He is like, if you were to have him in a James Bond film, he'd be henchman number 3 for as much of an effect that he has.
Okay, for as much of an effect he has, let's just put it this way. I think he's a less competent Bond villain in that he did not have the brains to build a layer in an active volcano, and frankly, he has connections. He's trying to do things. He's corrupted the FBI, whatever, allegedly, a number of things that he's got working for him, and yet this is the best he can do.
He's never a threat. His main purpose in the film is to provide a disposable army of baddies that Ant-Man and Wasp can beat up along the way. I want to get into spoilers real quick because there is a bit of convolution in this movie, and I feel like I need to watch it 2 or 3 times to just make sure I didn't miss anything. But there are some things in this film that didn't quite make sense, and I want to appeal to your default mind, more or less, Kyle, as serving in your role as the default in Default Assault, to see if we can isolate this issue. So,
pretentious much? Moving on.
I'm trying to give you a compliment, but fine. And so, as the resident idiot on this show,
as the lowest common denominator up in this motherfucker with your backwards hat and your sports shit.
I couldn't have said it any worse myself. Thank you. So, real quick, sum up. I mean, I'd recommend it. I don't feel like it's one of Marvel's best. I think it's entertaining. I think it's enjoyable.
If you went in to Ant-Man thinking you'd get an epic the size of Infinity War, you are the person that thought the first of the Lord of the Rings trilogies was disappointing because it said to be continued or gave you a cliffhanger ending. You are the problem.
Well, it's not fair to compare any Marvel film in the MCU to Avengers Infinity War. Any film coming out after that wasn't called Avengers Infinity War Part 2 or whatever, God knows what title it's going to have. The true comparison for Ant-Man 2 would be to take a look at the various other 2s in the Marvel Universe. Let's take a look. Compared to Iron Man 2. Is Ant-Man and the Wasp better? I would say so, yes. Dark World, come on. Winter Soldier, I know you don't like that film, but I don't even think that you can argue that Ant-Man and the Wasp is better than Winter Soldier.
And I won't. As much as that plot sucked, the biggest problem I have with Ant-Man and the Wasp is there's some weak-ass shit in the plot. We'll get into that in a minute.
Yeah, and I think this is what the problem that we're both going to try to isolate in a couple minutes. I don't think it's better than Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. So,
yeah.
In retrospect, if you're going to compare it to the immediate sequels, it's on the lower end, but I wouldn't say it's a bad end. I would just say that at best it's an entertaining but mediocre Marvel movie.
Again, mediocre Marvel movie is kind of like jumbo shrimp, okay? It's not really a thing, you know?
It's like a bad James Bond movie. You know, you're going to have some fun with it, unless it's called Die Another Day, but nevertheless, no.
I was gonna say, like, we're not to the point where we have an actor that's Lazenby without going to a Netflix seasons.
But in Lazenby's credit, George Lazenby, the first James Bond to take over after Sean Connery, he may not have been the strongest Bond, but his Bond film surprisingly, was one of the best. So what can you say about that?
There are those who would battle you. We're not doing that tonight. I'm not saying I'm one of them. I'm just saying.
There are those, and they need to watch the show more often to get a thorough re-education and find true meaning and priorities in their life. So with that being said, on to the spoiler section.
Agreed. Spoilers, bitches. Spoilers.
So the plot, and this is my problem, especially when I kind of said earlier about lack of focus. It wasn't primarily specific to the various plot threads within this slightly convoluted narrative. And one of my biggest things is like, I don't understand the plan that Ava has. They're gonna draw on the original Wasp's energy to phase her back. I don't feel like that's explained very well. And then she starts, when they do it for a couple of seconds, she starts morphing. I'm like, what the hell is going on there? I feel like I completely missed something, and I want to see if it was actually adequately explained.
No, not in my view. Like, from my perspective, they started setting the table for a scientific psychobabble scene from moment one when Scott Lang is perceiving, somehow he's getting a damn vision about Mrs. Pym, right? Janet Pym, there we go. How on earth is that even a plausible thing? But it happened so early in the movie, you're like, you know what? They'll tell me that later. I never get it.
I had an issue with that as well, but they had for that, at least they had the one throwaway line where, oh, we tried it first, and that may have opened a door for you to be able to do this. Yeah, it's a reach. It's a terrible reach, but it addresses it somewhat.
Then we go on later. Granted, it did give us that completely awkward scene of Paul Rudd and Michael Douglas holding hands and all that other stuff. But then you get a throwaway line for this part too that I'm about to mention. Right, you're going in there. Michael Douglas, aka Hank Pym's, in there doing his rescue thing, and just at the last minute, somehow or another, Janet Pym finds him as he's waiting for her in the coordinates, whatever. Okay, blah, blah, drama, movie magic. Really not the problem I have, though I did kind of see it coming. Spoiler alert, if you saw the trailer, you probably saw what was coming. I don't blame you, moviegoer, for that. I
blame marketing.
Correct.
Not as bad as what happened with Homecoming, but this trailer did give away a lot of shit.
Let's not open up old wounds, please. Anyway, so but the part that drove me wild is she goes, I'm a different woman, Hank. I'm evolved. I mean, listen, first of all, you made it sound like you met somebody down there in the subatomic or in the quantum realm. I don't even want to see that Jerry Springer episode. But that being said, so then she pops back out of the tunnel after, and by the way, I do enjoy how he keeps calling it, I'm going to do the dive. That, I don't know why, but terming it like that made sense. Anyways, so they come back, Ava's there, and there's a whole thing, and she's just kind of like, no, I can fix you. And she just touches her head and everything's okay. What in the singular? Okay? Higgins Figgins, motherfucker. That would have made more sense. If she said Higgins Figgins, it might as well be magic. And listen, I know that it's been stated that magic in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is tantamount to science, but Jesus, Lord Almighty Christ in heaven, Jesus, Lord Almighty Christ in heaven himself didn't perform a miracle that ambiguous, okay?
I think at this point, the entire magic as science has kind of, that ideal has kind of faded away, where even Thor is being acknowledged as a god now. I mean,
well, right. I mean, and he was the god of hammers for a while. Oh, wait, no, I got that wrong. Anyways, no, listen. Higgins Figgins, motherfucker, would have done more to explain that to me than anything else that happened. I've evolved. And now they're sending him into the quantum realm in the post-credit scene to get the healing energy. What the shit is this new age trash?
What the hell are they doing performing that that stunt while the world is. I mean, yeah, okay, you can say, well, yeah, it's unfortunate that happened during the snap, but there's a bit of a buildup, worldwide events building up to the snap. It's not like it was a nice, calm, freaking day.
Well, in New York, it may have been, but
in New York, it may have been. They had a freaking spaceship land in the middle of New York.
I can account for that though. I can see them being like, whoa, hey, wait a minute. Some of that ish is going down. We may need some healing powers. We need to send Lang in.
But that's not the reason they did it, though. They said if they did because of Ava.
Okay. Maybe they needed another line to throw away dialogue to clean that up. Maybe I need to be the new Ant-Man screenwriter. Maybe we need to be the new Ant-Man screenwriters. I don't know.
This film had too many to begin with. They had 5.
Oh. Addition by subtraction, fools. Let's do this.
No, I agree with you. I mean, honestly, when she said that, I thought that they may actually turn her into the villain.
Ooh, that does have a hint of Mordo in it, doesn't it?
Yeah. It was a kind of a macabre thing to say. Even Michael Douglas looked at her kind of strangely. And to be honest, I was like, okay, is this setup for her being the villain in the next film?
Is this a trap? That's a trap?
I don't quite remember. I was never a big Ant-Man comic book fan, so I don't quite remember if there was ever a time where Janet was the villain. I sincerely doubt. I mean, I'm sure there was like one comic book where she became villainous due to some weird thing. That always happens. But I don't remember any storyline where she. There was a storyline where she was an abuse victim, but never the villain.
Wow.
I know that was actually a major Ant-Man story that I do remember, where Hank Pym apparently delved in domestic abuse.
Yeah, listen,
he swatted that wasp.
Oh God.
I think that you may have enjoyed it slightly better than I did, but I still think that it's fun. I don't think that. As far as, like I said before, as far as the sequels are concerned, it's not up there with the great Marvel sequels. But then again, there are a lot of number 2s in the MCU which get pretty close to being a number 2.
I was waiting for it.
Yeah, for the Marvel films. I mean, I still don't think there's been one entry in this series that I would consider terrible.
Well,
at the same time, I don't quite consider any one entry in this film to be a 5-star, Vertigo, Citizen Kane like masterpiece, but they're fun popcorn films. And this one is right smack in the middle.
Dude, okay, there have been 20 films, you said?
That's a good place to be after your 20 films.
Bruh, trying to tell you.
What other series can even attest to that other than Bond?
And again, this is us also clearly excluding the Inhumans and Iron Fist. Okay?
I'm not counting the TV stuff. There is a bit of a divide between Marvel TV and Marvel films. The only Marvel TV show that didn't get canceled that still has a stronger connection is really Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and even that is pretty far away.
I don't know. You're not counting Netflix shows as something as things that get canceled, then, are you?
No, I'm not counting Netflix shows as things that get canceled, but the Netflix shows, I mean, they reference the films once in a while, but that's as far as they go. You're not. They don't interconnect. Hell, even the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't truly interconnect. It does. That show kind of does so retroactively.
Okay. Sometimes. Yeah, exactly. It'll call back to Sokovia or the fall of S.H.I.E.L.D., et cetera. But that's
the reason that Nick Fury had the helicarrier. Okay, I think that's kind of cute. But you're never going to see an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. episode that establishes something, and then suddenly, Doctor Strange is like, oh, thank God Phil Coulson discovered this in episode 3.5.
Well, shit, he should.
I'm just happy that Phil Coulson's coming back in Captain Marvel. I'm probably more excited about that than I am for Captain Marvel.
Well, and to be honest, listen, okay, Doctor Strange would know enough that they're trying to keep Phil Coulson a secret so he can never have that line. I hate to have that bad news for you, Demos, but
I think I've just discovered the perfect Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. follow-up.
Like
spin-off, more or less. Doctor Strange and Phil Coulson, they decided to open up a tiki bar in Tahiti.
and they'll call it the magical place.
But I think they should have a bar extension that comes alive at night, and they're going to call it Dormammu's. Because I think that sounds like an awesome tropical drink. The Dormammu?
I'll take 3 Dormammu shots. Are you here to bargain?
What were your closing thoughts on Ant-Man and the Wasp?
Yeah, if you're one of these people that don't like it, you're the problem. The plot does certainly have its weak points, but I'm going to quote my dude TJ. I don't have my glass here, so I'm just going to use my air glass. It was an experience that I enjoyed, and its foundation was built upon from the first Ant-Man movie to this one, and it actually is enveloped in the foundation of the next building away from the Infinity War.
And my closing thought will be this: I think that a lot of the backlash you're seeing up right now is extreme. I think it's because of the success of Infinity War that people are having any kind of weird backlash, especially when a film series hits 20. There is kind of even within fan communities, there's kind of a riptide. There's kind of like a point where you want to see a stumble, you want to see a failure, and I don't really want to blame fans. I think we're seeing a lot of fan blaming lately, where yes, every fan base is going to have bad actors, but I think that a lot of the stuff that we're seeing, especially in connection with Star Wars, is based on either marketing or the bad actions of a few. I think that a lot of this is, I can't think of a better word than clickbait. More or less, it's entertaining. It's a good movie. If you have questions about it, I can't say it's a movie you have to see in theaters. But I would definitely recommend it. I definitely recommend watching it on home video. There's nothing offensive about the film. It's just enjoyable.
Hey, listen, I think it's a good experience in the theater too. You know, if you want to save a few bucks or you know, make sure you see a matinee. Okay, cool. Or when it's in the second run of the dollar theater, cool there too. But if you're a Marvel fan, check it out. You're gonna like it.
Well, that was it for today's episode of Default Assault. Make sure to check us out this upcoming Thursday. We're going to have a special guest, my good friend Jim. He was on this show already to talk about Ready Player One, where he's coming back and he's ready to talk about James Bond. Make sure to follow me on hilaritybydefault.com for fun stuff every week, on Facebook and Instagram, Hilarity by Default, and on Twitter at Default Hilarity. Kyle, thanks for joining us.
Hey, keep in mind, folks, that this show that's coming out Thursday is pre-recorded, so you know that Demos will make it out alive. And he did have his inhaler, though he has no asthma. Talking about James Bond for that long in one span of time was dangerous. But the spoiler we'll give you there is he did come out okay. So, you know, nothing to worry about there. Of course, you can find me on Twitter at the SOTG, of course, on Instagram as well as the SOTG, and of course on Facebook as the Student of the Game. And check out my works on Blue HQ Media, Break the Fourth, yeah, a little bit of stuff from HilarityByDefault.com, and on Tuesday nights on Blog Talk Radio, search for Dinner Time that I do with our good friend Tokyo Jameson, aka Big TJ. You know, that large black dude you see talk with us every now and again, breaking down and waxing poetic. Yeah, man, good times all the way around, man. Fun episode.
Awesome. Well, check us out yet again, where life is hilarious by default. Inhaler?